Have you ever tried to keep a straight face while everything inside of you was falling apart? We are taught to be strong, to pull ourselves together, to hide the pain and control ourselves. The Stoics said, "Do what is in your power and accept the rest." It sounds wise, but what do you do when you have no strength left? When the night feels longer than your willpower? This is where the Bible offers another source of strength. Not just hold on, but you are being held. Not just self-control, but peace that comes from above. When you are too weak to carry yourself and God carries you. It is not an escape from reality, but the strength to walk through it until the end. Today I will show you what this kind of biblical stoicism looks like in practice, and why it works where human willpower alone fails. If you think about it, Stoicism and the Bible, at first glance, seem to say the same thing. Be firm. Accept hardship. Do not let circumstances control your heart. The Stoics taught you cannot control the storm, but you can control yourself. It sounds beautiful, almost like a mantra of calm. But here is where the difference begins. Stoicism puts the focus on your strength, your discipline, your mind. But what if that strength is gone? What if your heart is exhausted, your mind is cracking, and your so-called iron will has turned into a thin wire ready to snap? This is where biblical stoicism goes further. It says true strength does not begin when you pull yourself together. It begins when you trust not. I carry the world on my shoulders, but I am carried by the one who is stronger than the world. Not a hardened mind, but living peace from God, which, as Paul writes, surpasses all understanding. And here comes the paradox. The Stoic sees suffering as a challenge. The Christian also sees it as a meeting place with God. Where human strength ends, God's work begins. And this is not just abstract. There is a story where this truth becomes so clear that it is impossible to ignore. Imagine an ancient Roman prison, stone walls, heavy air, a torch smoking in the corner, the smell of dampness and blood. On the floor lie two men, beaten and chained, their bodies covered with bruises. This is the Apostle Paul and his companion Silas. They were brought here not for a crime, but for speaking to people about Christ. The crowd had beaten them with rods, and the judges ordered them to be thrown into the darkest cell. Iron shackles cut into their legs. This was not a night of rest, but a night of pain. And at midnight, when any normal person would either groan or stay silent from exhaustion, a sound suddenly rises from the depth of the prison. But it is not a cry or a complaint. It is singing. Paul and Silas begin to sing hymns to God. Picture the contrast: blood on their backs, cold chains on their feet, and voices filled with joy. The other prisoners listen in silence. Some must have thought they had lost their minds. How can anyone sing in such a moment? But what filled their voices was not madness. It was peace. A peace no one in that place had ever seen before. And suddenly the ground begins to shake. The walls tremble. The shackles fall off their hands. The prison doors swing open. Yes, it was an earthquake. But for those who listened, it was more than natural power. It was a sign that joy and faith can break the strongest chains. Here is the difference. A Stoic would say, "Do not let circumstances break you. Keep your face steady." But Paul and Silas showed something greater. They showed biblical stoicism, a strength rooted not in human will, but in God. They sang because they knew freedom does not begin with open doors. Freedom begins with a heart filled with peace from above. And this is the mystery. For those who trust God, joy does not depend on the prison. Peace does not depend on whether the hands are free. Strength does not depend on whether you are beaten or whole. Now think about this. What does it mean for us when we face our own prisons, stress, loneliness, or pressure? Paul and Silas left behind a key that still works today. We can admire Paul and Silas, but the real question is, what does this mean for me? Because our prisons today look very different. They are not chains on our feet, but debts that weigh on the heart. They are not judges with rods, but a toxic boss, or the fear of losing a job tomorrow. They are not a dark cell, but an empty apartment, where the night is filled only with silence and anxious thoughts. Stoicism would say, keep your face steady. Do not show weakness. Endure. But how many people look strong on the outside, while already broken on the inside? That is a mask, not real strength. The Bible offers another way. When I am weak, then I am strong. 2 Corinthians 12:10. It sounds like a paradox, but that is where the power is to admit weakness and trust God. You do not have to carry the world on your shoulders alone. Where your strength ends, His begins. And this is what sets you free. You do not have to pretend to be made of iron all the time. You can be real, you can cry, you can feel tired, and still remain strong, because your strength no longer depends on your mood or your energy level. It comes from above. This is biblical stoicism. It is not dry endurance or fake toughness. It is real inner freedom that holds a person even when circumstances try to crush them. And here comes the question: how can we learn such strength? The answer exists, and it sounds simple, but it opens up an entire new world. This is the point. Biblical stoicism is not a cold mask on your face or a dry willpower that depends only on yourself. It is a living strength that comes from God, a strength that allows you to sing hymns even in prison, to find peace in chaos, and light in the darkest nights. And it is not only for the chosen ones, not only for apostles or heroes of the past. It is available to anyone today, right now. The only question is, will you trust Him when your strength runs out? And if this truth speaks to you, if something inside starts to come alive, stay here. Because the Bible speaks about our lives much deeper than we usually think. Subscribe, and together we will keep discovering these answers step by step.